stuck up, half-witted, scruffy-looking nerf herder.
Hello, welcome again to another episode of the Scruffy Nerf Herders podcast. I am your host, Josh, and joined with me again is my co host, Will.
Howdy, y'all.
Howdy, howdy. Yeah, this is our Western talk.
Yeah, yeah. Ask me about my cowboy loadout.
All right, there, lever action boy.
I've got a couple of revolvers for it as well. I'm one of the only people in the SCNC who routinely uses a magpie, even though it's terrible.
The only one willing to deal with a magpie.
Yeah, because I enjoy a cowboy loadout. You'll sometimes see me wearing cowboy boots, even though I can't run in them with a wide brimmed hat too.
Anytime I think of cowboys, I just think of Supernatural. You've yeed your last haw. But back onto topic here. Yes, thank you guys again for joining us. I hope you weren't deterred from our last episode and find us enjoyable enough to listen to us again. This episode is going to be a themed episode, considering how close we are to one of the biggest events of the year, that being Endwar. I figured we'll have a episode discussing what Endwar is and the game built around it, which is HVZ, better known as Humans versus Zombies. It's one of the more popular games that he plays, and even people who don't like pertain to our hobby or entertain, the standard nerfery, still have played in Humans versus Zombies or will come out specifically for that. And I figured it would be a good time to bring up and talk about what this whole thing is. There's a lot of people in the hobby that might have heard about it, might hear a few things here and there about what this HVZ stuff is, but they don't know completely. Funny enough, as of this recording, this morning I actually had a close friend of mine who's also new to the hobby ask, "Oh, hey, Endwar sounds great. Do you guys have any like rules or like is there a website I can go to check out stuff for HVZ?" And the short answer is kind of. It's kind of spread out all about. There's different rules for different areas, but you know what? Let's just talk about it here.
I, for example, have never actually played a successful HVZ. My college tried to get one going, and there were 20 of us, which meant you never saw another player or a zombie, and it fizzled out after a week. So the closest I've come to is playing humans versus zombie rounds at our local club.
And those, while fun, are definitely not the same as HVZ, like End War, and like that are played on college campuses.
Exactly.
So yeah, let's jump into it and let's kind of just start off with the basics. Let's first start off with what is HVZ. So HVZ, or Humans versus Zombies, is kind of what it sounds like. There's basically two groups. You have the humans and you have the zombie. And for lack of a better term, it's essentially a giant game of infection tag or freeze tag, but whenever you're tagged, you are now a zombie. The whole point of the game is to survive, or if you're a zombie, to get more people to become zombies. So it's similar to like amoeba infection. I like to call it as live action Call of Duty Nazi zombies. It's just when I heard about it, that was like the big thing going on, and I think there was even a news article being like real life Nazi zombie play down here at your local college campus, and I'm just like listening. So that's the quick down and dirty part. The whole point of the game is to survive or get everybody turned into zombie. And the reason that our hobby has kind of latched onto this game mode is we get to shoot people. And part of the history of it and how it originally started is we get to shoot people in between classes in college, which is very appealing during finals when you're like, okay, I'm stressed out. I have to study. I have to study. I need to run. I need to run right now. I can't think about studying. Run, 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 run. Shoot, shoot, shoot. Run, 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 run.
I might be showing my age here, but when I started playing, the Maverick had just come out, so that's what everybody was running.
Back in my day, all we had was Mavericks and Jolts.
I became the cool guy because I had a deploy.
Oh, big man on campus.
Oh yeah.
Literally.
Oh yeah.
Oh man, those those were the days. Yeah, it's definitely a very weird time to think about. Back in the black and white era of when Will was in college and the days where there was essentially just jolts, mavericks, a mag-fed blaster at that time was unheard of. I don't even think like the long shot or the strife or even like a recon at that point. I could be talking out of my ass, but now we got to Google this. So yeah, after that quick pause of having to look it up, that's right. The long shot was the first clip-fed blaster. Sorry, it's been so long, I forgot. So yeah, back in the days where we even had a long shot to pretend to do long range sniper mode. Yeah, all we had was Mavericks and things that left swarm fires, I think was like the big deal. But even that was rare to see. So yeah, it's very strange to see that our hobby has changed so much in 20 years.
Hush, it hasn't been that long. I don't know what you're talking about.
You old coot. It's been 20 years. You're talking about it 20 years ago. Right. And so with the advent of the MagFed blaster and now all of these third party companies, all of these new options to choose from, the game has just evolved. So what likely would have been the case back in, the olden days was you had a bunch of kids who would show up around a college, decide that hey, we need to kill some time in between classes, in between finals, so let's play this game, and they would grab a bunch of blasters. And the generalized rules were as follow. You have two groups, humans and zombies. The humans are signified as people wearing bandanas, or usually some sort of like hat or whatnot. They usually try to do bandanas of a specific color, so that way they could be registered as playing. A human would have the bandana around their arm, and a zombie would have the bandana around their head. And you would only be able to play as long as you had a bandana on. So there wouldn't be, if you had to like specifically go to class or you for whatever reason could not be playing, you would take the bandana off, you'd be free, so be it. But that was your signifier. So zombies would have it on their forehead. You'd be walking around going to class or whatever, and then turn the corner and sure enough you see a dude with a bandana on your head, and all of a sudden you just book it. You just start hoofing it around whether you had your blaster on you or not. That was where our generation learned if you ain't strapped, you're gonna get clapped.
I used a laptop case strap as a bandolier to keep my deploy on the side on my back.
Got a John McClane, a bunch of duct tape with a Maverick behind you. I'm unarmed. And that's actually wasn't too terribly uncommon. You would be on a college campus and you would see people with bandanas on their foreheads, people with them on their arms or somewhere else, and they would have like a Nerf blaster like on them, or someone would have like a holster, or you would just see like the edge of a swarm fire sticking out of a backpack. Because technically speaking, the early days of HVZ, once the game started, it didn't end until officially all of the humans were dead. So the games would go on for days and weeks, once upon a time. The games have kind of evolved since then. Modern social dilemmas have come up, making it a little more difficult to just run around carrying around toy blasters in a public setting. So we've had to kind of adapt and evolve. And so instead of just having weeks put to the side at a college campus for just college students to do this, it slowly evolved into weekend events or holiday level events where they would take unused college campus and hold a weekend where the entire time you would be playing. And instead of going in between classes, people would start creating missions and objectives to do. So that way there was a reason for you to go from place to place and you didn't just hold up in a corner somewhere and wait out the whole weekend to say that you made it. Which some people still do that. I swear I remember seeing somebody at one of the end wars. I don't know if they were busy or whatever, but they ended up coming to sign up, registered, got their bandana, and then I did not see them until the last day, and they just showed up for the whole stand. I'm like, I feel like that's cheating, but I'm not certain.
Well, on that note, why don't you give us a better description of what Endwar is, as I'm kind of aware of it, but obviously have never been. So I think that would be helpful for me and probably all of our listeners to hear what Endwar specifically is.
Sure thing. So End War is, as I brought up in the last episode, we talked about that it's coming up. End War is the closest thing to like Nerf Comic Con, is what I'll call it essentially. And between the different parts of it, End War first and foremost is an HVZ event. It is a yearly event, usually held around about this time every year. The location is usually revolving. It goes to different states, different colleges. It's hosted by Drac, who is a fair name in the hobby. I'm pretty sure if you don't know who Drac is, you wouldn't have found our video first. But Lord Draconical is his YouTube name. He is a local member for us and gentleman who we've had multiple run-ins with, and I've had the pleasure of his company and been able to shoot him plenty of times.
or be shot by him. For example, my very first HVZ at the SCNC, I was a zombie charging him while he was testing out his skewer, and I got shot in the nipple from 2 feet away with a skewer.
That is a spicy shot, my friend.
Oh, yes.
Now, Endwar is first and foremost a humans versus zombies event. There are some other parts that are now added onto it, which are fantastic and fun, and we'll bring that up later. But HVZ is the real reason the majority of us go. It's what it was built on, what it was designed to be and do, and that's just what it is. So the way Endwar works is usually a check-in or registration to make sure that your gear and blasters are up and running. There's usually a safety briefing to let you guys know about the FPS cap and some of the rules. And they're roughly what I laid out beforehand. So the general rules for End War are essentially as follows. Everyone will be signified by a bandana. Please do not interact or shoot anybody who's not wearing a bandana or a like a moderator shirt. Usually they'll have bandanas on too, but the moderator shirts are pretty obvious. They're usually like yellow or green. They say End War on them. Everything else, if it doesn't have a bandana on it, it's not part of the game. Usually the campuses are fully rented out and wardened off, so there's not usually going to be civilians passing by, but some people like to jog, some people like to run around. So bandanas are key. You got to make sure you have yours on. If it's on your arm or body, you are a human and you must keep it visible so everyone knows that you're playing and seen. And if you're a zombie, you have it on your forehead. And if you are a zombie, whenever you are hit by a Nerf dart, rifle ball, or any sort of Nerf ammunition, or sock bombs, as some people like to do it, which sock bombs are just rolled up socks that are like duct taped together, those are going to stun you. And usually you are stunned either via a timer or usually for End War via like a respawn point further back, depending on what game mode it is. And the whole point is for the zombies to tag you. If you are tagged by an unstunned zombie, meaning a zombie that has not been hit, then you then become a zombie. Usually they recommend you either put your gear down or there's usually safe areas or staging areas where you can go put your gear back safely and then you are now a zombie. You then put the bandana on your forehead and now you got to go tag all of your friends who you were just fighting with. The restrictions, Endwar usually caps the blasters to 130 FPS and only officially regulated ammo. So, in other words, they do not allow custom ammunition like Southeast slugs, which are essentially chunks of foam with washers on them, FVJs, which are hard plastic tips, or anything that is not typically branded either Nerf or now like Dart Zone and stuff. So, stuff with proper squishy soft heads. If you have ammunition that you think is questionable, I usually recommend to not bring it. Bring ammo that you know would work. If you honestly don't know, there are plenty of people there that can help you, and definitely the moderating team is always there to be very, very helpful and let you know if that will work or not. And to be perfectly frank, that's the rules of HVZ. There's usually some very specific rules when it comes to like missions or certain events, and we'll get into missions in just a second to what those usually are. But honestly, it's kind of free form. There are some people who don't pertain to the missions and they just kind of roam the campus making sure that they can survive zombies. People do whatever they feel like they want to do. That being said, the missions tend to be really fun. They have goals and rewards and consequences if they aren't completed, usually, if the game is set up right. The missions are also usually clearly delineated. I say that usually, and people who were at End War 2019 and were part of the Gryffindor team knows exactly what I'm talking about. Being clearly delineated as to our objective.
Okay, so you've given us an idea about missions. Can you go into some more detail about that, Josh?
Sure thing. So missions tend to be exactly what they sound like. They're objective-based goals for the humans to complete, or sometimes even the zombies. Sometimes the zombies will have specific goals to fulfill, and they will usually progress whatever narrative they are trying to have for the event, or give certain bonuses or event times. I know usually like one of the common things is if humans are successful in a mission, Zombies will have a longer respawn timer. If they fail, the respawn timer is shorter, and vice versa. And the missions can vary from a search mission where you're trying to find an item or possibly even a VIP. There have been events in the past where the goal has been to take a VIP from one location to another. And
No, not VIP escort missions. I hate escort
oh,
missions.
uh, I'll do my best to see if I can pull up some of the footage, but I think it's from Endwar, either 2018 or 2017, and they had to escort somebody, and they were in the heart of the college was very much in or next to a city, and so some of the footage recorded was people in alleyways, actual alleyways of like zombies hiding behind trash cans and literally coming around corners and stuff. It was a hoot to watch. I'm so mad I missed it, but it looked crazy. But yeah, so missions have different goals and effects, and they, like I said, they vary from search and destroys to collect. Sometimes you have to quote unquote capture a zone. Basically, you have to make sure that no zombie comes within range of it for X amount of time, et cetera, et cetera. The missions can become anything. And because the HVZ is supposed to be essentially a continuous event, they go from usually early in the morning or right as it starts into late at night. And so there'll be nighttime missions. There'll be people who really want to ball out and they'll have, flashlights built into their gear. A couple people will bring night vision goggles. Uh, there are some hardcore people like just south of people literally hiding in small rivers and creeks and coming out like it's a National Guard commercial. We are the National Guard. Yeah. People will go crazy. And to that effect, HVZ becomes fun because of the effort you put into it. While you think being a human is the goal, your objective is to survive. I can say for certain, and I have some friends who actually choose this. Zombies are actually they have more fun. I know. A shout out to Sam Brandt if Sam's listening. They are insane, and she will pseudo play until she's captured, or she'll start off as like one of the early zombies specifically because the second she becomes a zombie, she immediately starts pulling out the makeup, starts throwing dirt on her face, and she just goes crazy. And there are people that do that, and they're like, okay, cool, blaster's down, time to pull out the fake blood and limbs and start just being a zombie. They just have fun chasing people, and it generally is fun. You don't think it's one of those things that you would enjoy, and then all of a sudden it's you and like six other people being like, all right, look, three of you go around this corner, two of us gonna hide behind this bush. Kevin, you're gonna be the distraction, thinking that we're gonna come over from the other side. Okay, shh, here they come, here they come, here they come, and break. And all of a sudden, you just have like these coordinated zombies, like someone's jumping over a ledge. It turns into 28 days later because these are running zombies. And I know zombie purists will be like, 28 days later isn't a real zombie flick. It is an HVZ. They are some fast little buggers. Look, I'm a big dude. I got a long stride. I don't move fast though.
No, as somebody with a bum knee, I am much more of the shambling zombie.
And with actually Will bringing that up, that's actually probably going to be where we're going to go next. Let's talk about best practices when it comes to playing HVZ. There's definitely a lot of things that come up that I feel either get ignored, get missed, or are definitely overlooked. And this is something that I'm pretty sure any long-term nerfer will say, but also specifically HVZers will say. Rule one when you're playing HVZ: hydrate, drink water, have water on you. If you're planning on being there all day for the event, get like a camel pack. Make sure you have at least a bottle of water on you or hydration because this is in the middle of summer and the last couple of events have primarily been in the southeast. Southeast has got some hot summers and they are very unforgiving at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, 95 degrees outside, no shade. You're cooking. And dehydration is a thing.
Look, I mean, I work outside. I've only gotten heat stroke twice a summer for the past 10 years. I don't know what you're talking about, Josh. It's not that bad. The humidity doesn't make you want
Look,
to
just
die.
suck it up, Buttercup.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, rule number one is please hydrate. If you're planning on joining an HVZ and someone sent you this video or you're listening because you're genuinely interested, I cannot recommend enough. Stay hydrated, keep some on you. That is a big, big deal. Second best practice. If you're a human and you're planning on making it a long time, one thing I definitely would recommend, have a backup blaster. I cannot tell you how many times a jam will occur or a battery dies or you trip, you fall, the blaster cracks, and all of a sudden you are up a creek without a paddle. And so when in doubt, make sure you've got something as a backup. Luckily, HVZ is only got a 130 FPS cap, so most blasters are perfectly viable at those powers and ranges. So even if you have just a Maverick, honestly, those 6 shots could help your butt when you're trying to make a run for it. Maybe in a little bit, we'll actually break down and we'll talk about our loadouts. And I know we've talked about this a little bit, and I know some of what Will is going to do, but I might actually have to give him some tips on his setup because, as we've said, he's a newbie. He doesn't know.
So then, what would you say the third most important thing is?
Yeah. So third most important for this, and this is also going to be kind of a depending on how you look at it, it should also be kind of like a rule zero. And the third most important thing would be to be safe. So wear proper shoes, make sure you have gloves that are like fairly absorbent to keep your hands dry. Honestly, one of the best things you can have on hand is a rag or a towel to dry yourself off every now and then. You are sweating, and the last thing you want to do is your blaster slips or you get some stuff in your eyes and all of a sudden you trip and fall. A lot of these people, and you might be one of them too, will bring $300, $400 worth of gear. And the last thing you want to do is trip over a ledge, fall, crack your blaster, crack your gear. It definitely becomes a problem if you don't stay dry, stay hydrated, and make sure that you've got proper traction and grip on your stuff. I've seen some people come in flip flops, and I'm like, they are madmen. They're like, I'm gonna run a flip flop, guys. You have fun with that, my dude. And then they realize the folly of their choices real quick. All of a sudden, you just flap, 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 flap. Wait up, guys! I can't follow. Flap, 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 flap. Brains.
I would assume that that would also include don't use blasters with any sort of exposed metal barrel, so that way nobody can skewer themselves on it. Being careful about how you're approaching people if you're a zombie.
Oh, yeah, for sure. So it's definitely important, and it's something you should consider when you're creating a loadout. That's also something that you will have addressed when you go for the blaster check. So usually when they go for an FPS check, they look over your blasters. Ideally, the weapons you're going to be using are the ones that you bring to get checked, and they'll make sure that it registers proper FPS, but it doesn't have any super sharp edges. It has an orange tip or is at least super bright colored, and definitely does not have an exposed metal barrel. Because the last thing we want to do is start impaling our fake zombies who are actually our friends with a brass barrel. Those things are sharp.
Mhm.
But that's still a very good point to bring up, and that's something I probably should have said sooner. That's still an important note to have.
So from there, let's maybe start talking about our loadouts. I've got an idea of what I'm bringing to Endwar, and I'd like some pointers. As Josh mentioned, I'm kind of new at this. My planned loadout for this, I'm actually planning on bringing 4 blasters, just so I've got multiple options.
Interesting. That's a pretty high number, but let's see where you go with this.
So my primary loadout, I intend to have a Nerf Moto Blitz that I will have modified to take half darts, the slightly higher FPS. I'm aiming for about a 115 FPS cap on that, and a LiPo battery, 2S. I also am going to be attaching 2 Proud Papas and a Mighty Mama, so that way I have all the panic buttons with different types of ammo. So whatever I want to do, I've just got many different options on it. My secondary, I plan on using a Meowser DL44, which is a Flycore blaster. Also, this one I'm using micro flywheels in, so once again aiming for about a 115 FPS on it. And part of the reason I'm doing that is because that way I can switch magazines between my blasters as needed, since I will have a loadout of all Talon magazines, and both of these blasters will take Talons.
That's actually a very smart thing to do. One of the other smart things to do is make sure that your blasters take the same ammo, and if you're using magazines, the same magazines as well, because the last thing you want to do is overuse one ammo type or not pack enough, and all of a sudden, you're using full lengths, and the last thing you have left are rival ammo, and now you no longer have your primary or that blaster, and you're stuck using something else that you might not be comfortable with in that situation. So that's actually a very smart thing to do.
So I'm planning on bringing a secondary loadout of springers in case of inclement weather. I don't really want to be using an electronic blaster if, for example, it's rainy or something like that. And as a result, I'm going to be bringing a modified Alpha Trooper. I've stuck a hard range kit in it, so it will be hitting about 120. Still going to be using short darts because I've got a lot of Talon magazines. I've got a lot of short darts. And my secondary will be a hammer shot. I'm kind of waffling back and forth right now. The sensible choice is to bring a hammer shot that takes half darts with a 8 round cylinder in it, but I've got a mega dart shooting hammer shot that I really love. And while it wouldn't be as practical because, as Josh said, probably stick to the same ammo type, part of me really just wants to use that. So we'll see. I'll might bring both, and I've got 2 holsters, and we'll see.
Right. That's actually not as bad as you might think. At least with a hammer shot or something, a hammer shot is fortunately only 5-ish cylinders, depending on what sort of mods you have on it. So that it only has so many darts. That being said, there are in some situations where special ammo is important. Certain zombies actually do have weaknesses. Like there are tanks or something that actually can only be defeated or stunned by mega ammo. So it's not entirely wrong to do something like that if you want to be that kind of person that has the panic option of, oh no, mega fire, mega fire. Because I know some games they'll do like shield busters and stuff, but with HVZ, sometimes mega is actually useful. So it's not the end of the world if you want to run some mega stuff.
Any other thoughts or critiques on my loadout for blasters, Josh?
Honestly, no. You actually did a pretty decent follow through, and I'm not gonna lie, you actually did one up on me because I don't have a Springer prepared.
I've got a lot of hammer shots and several hard range kits. If you want me to make a second one and
Ah
bring it
man,
with
you
me,
know what? I think I'm just gonna go all or nothing. I have a half dart fate modified rival fate that will just I'll have an inline clip for, and I'm just gonna have those like 4 darts. That's gonna be my only Springer. So just a little bit of background for me specifically. I almost play exclusively in competitive games or high FPS. So I've completely built around using some either like really nice flywheelers or set up for the competitive event that's going to be for Endwar, which we'll probably talk about in a little bit. But I also just realized I didn't actually plan for inclement weather. If it rains, I'm SOL. And on top of that, my intended loadout is expensive. It's very pricey. So for End War, my loadout is I say was like it's gonna change. My End War loadout is going to be the fantabulously overpowered and way too expensive FDL3. My great friend Jesse was the one who designed the FDL3. He's a fantastic person, and he made truly, even to this day, what we consider the Ferrari of blasters. And this thing, if you don't know what an FDL3 is, there'll be a picture up right now. It's hard to explain, but this thing can adjust rate of fire, it can adjust FPS. So once I have it dialed in, I can get exactly to 130. The rate of fire is anywhere from semi-automatic single shot, and then the full auto rate is, dear God, 20 darts a second. I can drop a clip in the time it takes for a trigger pull. So my goal is to be using a customized FDL3 that I was able to modify to use angled Talon mags because I am giving all of my normal Talons to some friends who are coming with us. So I'm like, crap, I don't have enough mags to share Talons. Wait, I also have just 10 angled mags I'm not using. Let's use those. On top of which, that I'm also being kind of bad, and I'm actually not using a secondary. If the FDL dies, the FDL dies, and those who can attest, if an FDL dies, there's going to be like a funeral on site. Like we we'll talk about this probably another day, but there was cause for an FDL to break during an event, and everyone around had to just like stop and take a moment, like no. Like a child died that day. Like, oh no. So no, my loadout is going to be incredibly streamlined. The only things I'm going to be running is an FDL3 and a whole bunch of mags, and then some spare ammo to load up, which is recommended because it's an all day thing. So if you think, oh, I don't use that much ammo, it's not going to be that bad. Bring bring more ammo. Bring all of the ammo. To quote Kylo Ren, because this is going to be the first time we can quote Star Wars. Fire everything more.
I mean, I bought another 4 Talons just for this
Smart
event.
man.
I'll be running, I think at this point, 12 Talon
That's
magazines.
smart. My first End War, I ran 25. I
Oh,
had
jeez.
20.
I don't have enough carrying capacity for
Oh,
that.
see, no, see, I'm built like Hagrid, so I have plenty of space for 25 mags. It's just all around.
So what I'm hearing is I'm going to purchase a bunch more and then just strap them to your body and use you as my ammo
So that's not uncommon to do, and we actually have somebody in our community. Shout out to Daniel, aka Dart Dragon, for those of you guys who have been to End War or are in the SCNC. We actually have somebody who is just strapped with mags. I can't remember the final total, but I think Daniel, being the skinny dude he is still strapped with I think 40 mags altogether, and he actually has back-mounted mag holders. I think he's able to hold 6 mags behind him that I think are literally there for
Mhm.
people to grab from him if they need it. So, that is not uncommon, and I would not be the only person out there doing that. So, if we wanted to build, like, a harness system for just mags, we can do it. Just keep in mind, if I get out, I'm taking the mags with me.
No,
I'm gonna be that special zombie you have to kill for like the ammunition. I have rare drops.
good thing I'm planning on bringing a lot of men then.
Oh yeah, dear God, I would probably count as a special zombie no matter what. So as an aside, and this is just kind of to show that you can never truly expect what's going to happen when it comes to End War. My first End War, which was End War 2019, I brought 25 mags. I came loaded. I came ready. I got out in the first mission. I became a zombie about 2 hours into all of End War, and it sucked. And I felt really bad, but you know what? It wasn't as terrible as I thought it was going to be. I definitely felt discouraged because I'm a hardcore zombie like gamer and stuff. So I'm like, oh, I know all the strategies. I kind of got out in a little bit of a BS way, if I'm going to be honest. I was helping somebody who kind of hurt themselves. I probably shouldn't have even counted myself out, but I allowed it. I'm like, fine, I got out. So, but I played zombie for most of the rest of the time, and it was still a blast. A lot of people had fun. We ran around, had a hoot of a time.
Quick question for you about End War specific, since I know at our local club, the SCNC, when we play HVZ, zombies use shortened pool noodles. Is that the case for End War, or are you tagging out people by hand?
So it's a combination. I believe pool noodles are available slash you can bring your own. That being said, you are not limited to pool noodles. You can just tag with hands. So
Okay.
that actually is a fair point. I did forget to mention that in my zombie description. Zombies do have at least a little bit of a bonus of they have an extended reach with pool noodles. So they can tag you out with pool noodles, not just tag you with their body. So you do have to account for an extra like 2.5 to 3 feet of range on a zombie. Thank you for bringing up. I forgot about that.
You mentioned special zombies. I had been given to understand that End War tended to not have special zombies. Has that been the case in your experience, or
So actually, it's kind of mission based, but their special zombies tend to be mission specific. But at the same time, there are some special zombies that are kind of ubiquitous, such as the boomer and the tank are the two that I'm very familiar with and can say like those almost always show up. If you're familiar with like Left 4 Dead, you understand kind of what they are, and they're an analogous structure to what we're using them for. So like a boomer in Left 4 Dead, whenever a boomer is hit or explodes, they essentially now become zombie pheromone and attract more zombies to you. The way it works for HVZ is that usually a boomer is a specific zombie that will have like a giant stick or a staff to denote themselves, and if they get hit, they explode. And I think for X amount of time, they basically become an instant respawner for zombies. So instead of being on a 2 to 5 minute timer on a zombie, if a boomer is active, basically a zombie can kind of like tag in from the boomer and basically get reactivated. And the boomer will, like I said, have about a minute timer, and they will essentially keep walking towards you. They usually can't run or anything, and once they boom, once they explode, they stay in one spot for that timer as well too. So they can't get closer exactly, but if the boomer gets too close, you basically get infinite spawning zombies on you. So keep in mind, not activating the boomer and letting him get too close can be a problem, and activating the boomer constantly can also be a problem because you now have free activating zombies. So there's a bit of strategy when it comes to that, and depending on the mission, boomers can become a problem too. If you have to defend an area while people are trying to find an object or whatever, that boomer can just become a huge problem because all of a sudden you just have a respawn point and just things are just coming at you. And the other one that I can say for certain is a tank. And a tank, similarly, like I said, with Left 4 Dead, because, we're using pop culture for analogies here, they are incredibly powerful zombies. They usually have like one of a couple of abilities depending on the game itself. Like in Left 4 Dead, the tank has an option to throw something, so usually they'll have like a beach ball or whatever that they can use as like a projectile, but they also can't run. So similar to the boomer, they don't actually run at you, and they only can be usually stunned by mega ammo or special ammo or whatever objective they tell you. There tends to be a huge breakdown and let you know specifically of what types. I do know in the past as well, they have used wholly unique zombies that they've created for events. I want to say 2017 Endwar. It was either 2017 or 2018. They had like a Disney themed one, and they had like Ursula, the sea witch, and they had like super long like poodle arms, pool noodle arms, not poodle arms. God, that'd be terrifying. just a just a person with poodles attached to their arms. Oh God.
Oh God.
The pool noodle arms, and had like a very extended reach or whatever, and they had like a choke point and stuff. So they can and will make special zombies depending on the theme. And with this theme being Mount Olympus, we could very easily get Greek mythology. I assume we're gonna have a Sisyphus mission where we're just pushing a boulder up a hill or a pseudo boulder somewhere. I can assume that's probably going to be a
Mhm.
mission.
Yeah, I would imagine there's probably going to be either a Cerberus or a Titan
I-
type zombie.
if the last stand isn't like a Dionysus style, like Bacchanalia or whatever, where we're all just actually, you know what? This is a kid event. I probably shouldn't start bringing up Dionysus. Yeah, no, there almost assuredly will be some sort of Cerberus thing. I know we'll probably have a Medusa.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Maybe a Hydra.
the Hydra. Yes,
I know Drax said that he was going to be Odysseus in this, so imagine we might also have some sort of Greek heroes alongside us.
it's possible. I think he also made a joke about his dog being Cerberus.
That's true.
Tiny,
Mini Cerberus, I think.
tiny, tiny Cerberus.
Maybe we should now talk about strategies, both for humans and for zombies, and some successful strategies that you've seen or used, and unsuccessful ones as well, maybe.
Sure thing. Funny enough, the basic strategy for HVZ almost works the same way for both humans and zombies. And the short answer is coordination is the biggest thing you need. Having people who are willing to listen as well as some people who are willing to take charge make the biggest difference. You see it very, very clearly with stuff like giving them credit, like the crew auxiliary kind of guys who very clearly have a military esque pecking order. So they very much have commanders who push the objectives for them to go and everything, as well as you see on the other hand, just friends sticking together. I have seen a solid group of four hold back 20 zombies before. Maybe not forever, but they have put up one heck of a fight just on their own. So when it comes down to it, cooperation, in my opinion, is the biggest thing for both zombies and humans. Because one zombie can get lucky, 10 zombies working together to split focus and circle can take out everybody. So as humans, my biggest thing is stay together, cooperate, and to that effect, communicate. The more you talk, the more you're able to keep the lines of communication open for everyone to hear and understand, the more successful you will be. If no one is able to know what's going on, because to be frank, Endwar turns out to be hundreds of people. So we're not talking about your local group of 20, 30, maybe even 40 people, and you've got 10 zombies slowly taking people out and all that. I'm talking 300 zombies versus 2 to 300 humans at a certain point, and sometimes more zombies than humans. So this is not just some small quantity strategy setup. So the lines of communication get very difficult when you're on like the north end of an objective and the south end is easily 30 yards away and you've got 200 people between you and the people on the south end. Trying to keep those lines of communication open and being able to communicate from one end to the other to know what the entire amorphous cloud of humans are trying to do is key and very tough to do. In past years, we've actually had message chains and comment threads of people buying radios and talking about what channels they're going to be using, what channels shouldn't be used, so we can have like actual like pecking order lines of communication. So literally, we would have somebody in each squad with a radio and communicating back and forth, making sure we're at least somewhat connected to other people. That's not always the case, and it takes one person to troll to mess up the lines of the communication and just start playing music on their phone into their mic to kind of start messing stuff up. But it happens. That being said, lots of people take this as seriously as possible. I've had some old friends who, sadly, they're not in the hobby anymore, but go gung ho on this stuff. Like they would train every day. Be like, yeah, I put all my gear on and you ran a mile. I'm like, for for this Nerf event, right? We're talking about just HVZ. You went and ran a mile in your Nerf gear. All right, man, cool. He would do, loading drills, stuff like that. So people will take this seriously, and there are some people who will very, very clearly want to do the most to feel as immersed as possible. So having walkie-talkies and communication is fantastic, and some of those people, awesome. If you're just walking up with a dollar store strife that you modded a couple months back, don't feel discouraged because you and a bunch of friends can be just as effective. The second biggest thing besides just communication, squad up. I don't, whether you come with 30 people or 3 people, make sure you've got 2 or 3 people that all right, when this starts, stay on me or stick together. Do not separate. Do not run off. We are staying together because sure enough, at some point you're going to have to reload. And if you have to reload, you can't fire. So any point someone is going to be vulnerable. So the man who stands alone falls alone. Probably the biggest thing I can say. For zombies, if you want to be a great zombie or you want to be a good zombie, cardio. Lots of cardio. If you want to be a
As I
zombie,
look back at my elliptical with tread.
right? Yeah, not to say that you have to run, but like the the MVP zombies of the events are mini little the flashes who are just going to town. They're just sprinting. But beyond that, the same rules essentially apply. Coordinate. You are zombies. You all have the same goal. And honestly, zombies have the easier job. They don't have to do certain objectives. They don't have to coordinate a large group. They just have to be like, hey, guys, hold up, hold up, hold up. All right, we're all respawned. Okay, now go. At a certain point, the zombies don't need to do anything beyond go. That being said, if you are a zombie, I definitely suggest familiarizing yourself with the layout of the campus. it's great for humans as well, but zombies learning where the corners are, where the area is likely going to take you is definitely beneficial because if you and a bunch of other zombies can kind of guide the amoeba that is the humans, if you can guide them kind of into more treacherous areas, it's very beneficial. And the larger the group is, the easier it is to actually move them because everyone there no one knows what to do. The problem is with so many humans, there's no easy way to keep communication. So being able to push them and move them as zombies becomes easier the more there are. It's harder to get close, but people get very skittish at the beginning because they don't want to be the first people out. They don't want to be that guy. No one wants to be the first person turned zombie. They always feel bad, but someone's got to be it. And lastly, you know what? I think the last real bit of advice that, at least from my very subjective point of view, but honestly, and it's almost gonna just kind of be a reiteration of the first rule: know when to listen. Not everyone can be a leader, and not everyone should be a leader. Sometimes you have to listen to what other people are trying to tell you, and certain objectives you might not have the right perspective on, and certain things you might not be fully aware of everything. So listen is, I think, the big thing. If you want to take charge and be the commanding person, great, but that might not always be you. Make sure that when things look sketchy or things don't look right, listen to see if someone else is there around you that might have an option or an idea because it turns into chaos. So sometimes you have to listen to that noise. Yeah, and I think that's going to be my roughly 4 or 5 ish suggestions for humans and zombies. They're all basically the same for both, so take them for either side. They are beneficial no matter what.
And on that note, if you guys have any other tips or tricks or suggestions, please give us a shout out on our Facebook or down in the comments, and we will go through them and shout out any that we see on the next episode. Additionally, Endwar is going to be on June 30th, since we've been talking about that. So mark that on your calendars if you're planning on attending. And if you have any HVZ invitationals that you would like to let us know about, please let us know, and we will try to get details and information out on the next episode as well. And now it's time for the news.
The
Oh God, we're gonna keep doing that, aren't
news.
we?
News. Yeah, no, I'm just gonna announce the news in a way every time. I have no idea how. I'm just gonna start doing it.
So first up, the Dart Zone Mark IV has started appearing in reviewers' hands. So far, I've only seen it for Captain Xavier and Dr. Flux. It is half dart only. It's arriving with two different spring options. The high power spring is already installed. You can take that out and put the lower powered spring in it. Captain Xavier's review seems to suggest that the lower powered spring is more of an afterthought. He wasn't getting very good performance or very consistent performance out of it, but it's there if you want to drop down to, I guess, HVZ levels, for example. It also arrives with a SCAR barrel and a barrel extension. You can only use one or the other. The SCAR does not mount to the barrel extension for some odd reason.
Yeah, weird oversight.
Yeah, so that doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but that's the way they decided to do it. The barrel extension is sort of similar to the Deuce Pro, if anybody is familiar with that. It increases performance by adding functional barrel length when you attach it, and it makes it into a long boy.
It's very long. Geez, like how long is this thing? Do we know exactly how long it is?
We don't know how long exactly it is. It seems to be maybe with the barrel extension on it, maybe slightly longer than the Worker Swift. I'd
That's
say it's
long. Yeah.
yeah. I think it based off of what I'm seeing, it looks like a Swift with the long barrel installed on it.
Yeah, geez. So we're looking at what, 3.5 feet long almost?
Almost. I'm not certain on that. Don't quote me on that because we haven't gotten any definitive measurements on that. I haven't seen a Worker Swift and a Mark IV next to each other than in Dr. Flux's video, where he put two shorts out, and one of them has a comparison on the internals of the Swift and the Mark IV. They seem to have very similar internals. There's some notable differences. Pads on the plungers are different. The RAM is actually very different. The Dart Zone Mark IV appears to have a much more reinforced RAM so that you don't get as much flop in it.
It definitely looks like an iteration on the Swift, and I mean, given that it's such a large company, odds are there was either licensing or some sort of agreement to use this sort of design. It's definitely interesting, and I mean, considering people had problems with the Swift, this actually might be an interesting upgrade for people who like, ooh, the Swift sounds fun, but also not want the unreliability of it.
Yeah, exactly. Plus, it would mean that certain upgrade parts will be cross compatible. I know that a lot of people don't particularly like the metal plunger that is on the Swift due to the weight. So there are lightweight options out there. That seems to be something that would probably work if you bought that and put it into your Mark IV due to the plunger having a similar diameter. Also, that would mean that the springs appear to be the same length and diameter, which means that the high powered spring for the Swift could be used in the Mark IV. Captain Xavier said that he had information that the Mark IV was intended to be upgradable to have a much higher power load, but we have not had that confirmed at this time.
So Dart Zone pseudo said that they basically said what they were allowed to say in the sort of like discussion breakdown they did on their YouTube channel. There was like an hour-long discussion they did, and I want to say it's either the owner or the president basically said we made what we had to make to let this thing be on the shelves.
Gotcha.
And essentially said that. And given that they made an entirely metal internal, it's not a stretch to assume that they 100% intended us to open this thing up and slap in some crazy stuff. 100%.
Makes sense. Next in the news, we have a very exciting release from Zuru X-Shot. They have just revealed their first pro grade blaster. It is a bullpup pump action Springer, advertising 140 feet per second. Price is looking to be about $40 when it comes out, and it will shoot both half length and full length. The half length option will have a mag adapter similar to many of the Dart Zone offerings, which potentially means that you could also install, and I can't imagine they wouldn't do this, but if it's not Talon compatible, you could potentially just take your mag adapter from your Nexus Pro or something similar and put it in.
Yeah, I would be very shocked if Zuru, let's be honest, the knockoff like Buzzbee at this point, like points for Zuru, and I love the kind of things that they have done, but they are the cheapest construction wise of the blasters in our hobby, and they're not terrible considering the prices. They're a steal, but
Mhm.
like I would be hard pressed for them to design their own magazine
Oh, yeah.
just because of how cheap they are. Honestly, I think they would just copy a design because they don't want to go through the trial and error of making their own magwell design.
Yeah. Now, admittedly, in the release, I've been taking looks at it. That looks awfully like a curved Talon in those pictures to me. So I'm betting it is a knockoff Talon or maybe a licensed Talon. So we'll see. No confirmation on that yet. The leak has mainly just come through the Entertainer Toy Shop at this point. We don't have a release date yet, but it's a very exciting new option in the pro space, and we'll see what comes of it.
Yeah, no, and I'm incredibly excited for this blaster. There's a little bit of controversy around it, and honestly, I feel like it's all speculation at this point. We really don't know as of yet, but I'm always happy for another competitive blaster. The Mark IV is really cool. I'm excited for that. This thing, I'm a sucker for bullpups, and this thing just it looks purty. It's got a purty
Same. I,
mouth.
I love my bullpups, and I mean that's why I'm going to be running a Moto Blitz at Endwar, and I'm very excited for this. It's got a very cool looking shell, and it is also listed as being in the skins line, which means that we might be getting different colorations and patterns on it as well.
Yeah, and just a pretty shell to begin with too. Like the skins line as a whole has just had beautiful artwork on it, and it's on both
Both
sides.
sides.
For for those newer in the hobby that don't quite get it, Hasbro is renowned for only painting one side of their blaster, and that's the side that's usually showing in the box. So points to Zuru for painting both sides.
Giving them lots of snaps. Finally, GameFace, the makers of the Tryon, have released files on Thingiverse to modify your Tryon. They had already released a pump grip, a different buffer tube stock, a carry handle, a barrel swap kit, a pistol grip with spring spacer storage, and now we are getting a vertical foregrip, a scar barrel attachment that will screw onto the barrel attachment lug at the front of their blaster, and a curvy grip if for some reason you don't like pistol grip.
And they honestly they look really cool. And I got to give respect to a company that will release 3D printed files for their blaster, because it just shows, at least to me personally, that a company is listening, because they know what they're making isn't exactly top of the line. And Game Face knows, they're like, hey, this is a budget blaster that does high FPS. We know what we are, you know what we are, but also if you want something a little different, here you go, have fun, print it yourself,
Exactly.
get yourself something nice.
Here, take $10 and go see yourself a Star Wars.
Yeah, yeah. Go get yourself a sody pop.
And that is all the news I have for today.
Yeah, no, not a super busy news week, but also that's kind of to be expected. Summertime, usually everything gets built up for Endwar, and if not, it usually will get kind of saved up till like just after summer, when leaks will start happening again, and we get stuff for like Christmas time. So we'll probably have a pretty light news time for the next few episodes, but we'll anything that we think is interesting or cool, we'll definitely start talking about. So yeah, with the news wrapped up, let's just kind of, well, we've had a whole week and we still haven't figured out how we're gonna end this. Uh, just wanted to say thanks again, guys, for listening. Truly, if you're enjoying this, let us know. If you don't like our faces, still let us know. I'll cry a little bit more at night. But if you think we could do better, if you think there's something that we're not doing right, maybe I'm talking way too much, because I probably talked way too much this episode. Let us know, please. We want to try to give you guys content that you enjoy. So if we're doing something you don't like, make it known. And if you're the only one that brings it up, then it's just a you thing and quit listening.
Or don't. Keep listening, keep hating us.
Or-
Give us that hate list.
oh yeah, give us the spite watch. The spite watch is good.
Oh yeah. It's the good.
That's why HBO thinks they won't need a second season of Velma.
Oh god.
The hate watch.
The Scruffy Nerf herders are blasting off again.